Hello, and welcome to Talk Time with Tracy. I'm Tracy Flood, president of the local NAACP Bremerton-Kitsap branch. Today, I want to take a little time to talk to you about some Black history of Kitsap County and the significant roles of some of our past leaders that have moved on. This is Black History Month, and the NAACP was established in 1909 in response to several violent outbreaks around the US. The NAACP is the oldest civil rights organization in the US. The goal and mission is to ensure a society in which all individuals have equal rights, regardless of race, creed, or color. And in regards to not being discriminated against because of race. That's just a snippet into how the NAACP was established and why. A part of the NAACP is the Legal Defense Fund, which was established in 1940. The legal defense arm of the NAACP, many know Thurgood Marshall, many of the decisions, Plessy Fergus Ferguson, Brown v. Board of Education, and Thurgood Marshall being our first Black Supreme Court Justice. And I start there in 1940 because of the rich history that happens in Bremerton during that time. 1940 was the Great Migration into Bremerton by many African American families because of a better life in this area and the military and the work in the shipyard. The population around that time soared to 10,000 plus African Americans in the Bremerton area. One of those individuals was Al Colvin. Al Colvin was a Tuskegee Airman, the first Black aviators division established for World War II. The first Black city councilman for the city of Bremerton. That's significant. Take a moment and think about that. In Bremerton, a Tuskegee Airman who became a leader in our community beyond his military years played a significant role in the NAACP in establishing the Martin Luther King Scholarship Fund, which is now a part of the Olympic College Foundation. So his work has lived on in time. Trailblazer legend. Al Colvin was also a part of the Bremerton All-Stars. And the Bremerton All-Stars was a Black baseball team established again in the 1940s, embedded in the community. But I also want to highlight Alice Eakins, Loxie Eakins, both coming into Bremerton during this time, moving in. Mr. Eakins, Loxie Eakins, working in the shipyard, advocating for equal rights on the base, in housing, and through the NAACP, one of our first local presidents, as well as Alice Eakins, a teacher involved in so many areas in the community, well known for her work around the community, but also a past president of the NAACP. While I never got to meet Loxie Egan's, I did work very closely with Al Colvin and Alice Egan's. And I'm honored to have had that privilege and to have been in the presence of greatness. That's just a little bit of history. We've got a lot more. Fast forward to today and what's happening is tied to our past and our housing, our segregated housing, the Sinclair Inlet. Who lived there? Famous person by the name of Quincy Jones. And today we are working on Quincy Jones Square, downtown Bremerton on 4th Street. The NAACP is proud to be involved in partnership with getting Quincy Jones to give his permission to use his name in that revitalization project that's going to be going on downtown. If you walked on 4th Street recently, you'll see next to Axe and Arrow, the Q2. That's a part of that revitalization and a start. There's a lot more work that's going to be done on the street and what's to come with the project. But the work has begun. And in addition to that, the music discovery portion of that, you'll hear more about educational opportunities for youth, classes, arts. All of that is a part of the rich history. And coming also with the help of Congressman Kilmer and his lead, the renaming of the post office. We have Diane Robinson, who was the first African American woman city councilman, and delved in history and what the African American History Historical Society in establishing her walks. And I remember early on moving into Bremerton and walking with her downtown and understanding the history of what took place over by the shipyards and downtown and the significance of the Roxy Theater. So I give honor to her too for her great work in helping uncover Mr. Turpin and his significance to Kitsap County and Bremerton. Now, you won't see the name of the post office change. They're not going to rename the building. But what is going to happen is there's going to be a dedication ceremony, a ribbon cutting, when conditions, unfortunately, allow. With the current conditions of COVID, some things are unable to be done in person. But you will hear more about that, and that's going to be forthcoming. But Mr. Turpin will be honored for his work that unfortunately he didn't receive while he was with us. But I give honor to our Tuskegee Airmen, to Mr. Turpin, Alice Egan's, Loxie Egan's, all who've come before us. Diane Robinson, thank you. Thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you for being part of this history and carrying our community into areas that otherwise we would not have been able to go into. And you say, okay, well, what else is going on? Very significant in understanding where we are. This is Black History Month. It started off as Black History Week, and it went into Black History Month. But being that Black history is American history, shouldn't it be Black History 365? And that's kind of where it should be. You take a month off to do celebrations, but from the real McCoy to our Tuskegee Airmen to the present day of having the first Black woman vice president. It's American history. The NAACP is a nonpartisan organization. We are committed to justice, civil rights. And over the last year, we've seen a lot of history being made. History from this pandemic to history and turnout at the polls, history with the census, history built in to every aspect of our lives. I want to remind people that after the census comes redistricting. So it doesn't stop at that one point of answering the question, it goes on, because then that again makes history. So significance in education, our housing. I talked a little bit about the Sinclair Inlet and that being the housing during that time where African Americans had to live during the Great Migration. The census will impact redistricting and how much money comes into communities for housing. Looking at our historically Black colleges, the role that it plays in the establishment of the NAACP, Ida B. Wells, W.E.B. Du Bois, history, the rich history, the significance of our Black churches, history. It's all American history. So let's take this time, this month that's coming to a close, to continue to educate ourselves beyond the month of February. Understanding when our armed forces were segregated and then desegregated. To understand the significance and the impact of the Tuskegee Airmen and their unit and the numerous lives that they saved. To understand how important it is to have communities that are diverse and representative of everyone. And Bremerton is our most diverse city in Kitsap County. And that's significant. It's very significant. To recognize the leaders, past and present, makes us rich and better. And if you are downtown, you will notice the artwork in front of, if you've been around long enough, you know that the parking garage there on Burwell, at the corner, used to be the JCPenney's building. And the artwork in front of Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King. Great historical figures in our history, Black history, but it's our history. So the little acknowledgements, the little things, and knowing where we are now, but where we came from, being able to understand your past, where we came from, how we got here. If you can understand your history, you can understand your purpose, you can understand where you're going. And in educating yourselves beyond the norm, it can help you understand others and where they've come from and where they've been. And with the COVID, and currently now having the vaccine, many need to understand the history of the African American community and the medical community. The Tuskegee Experiment. I talked about the Tuskegee Airmen. Now I got to talk a little bit about the Tuskegee Experiment, in which African American men were used as test subjects, guinea pigs, concerning syphilis. Henrietta Lacks, who had cancer, and the government used her cells without her permission. That's just a little bit of history. And why is that part of history important? Because that helps you understand why there is hesitancy for so many people of color around the vaccination in the medical community, and the lack of trust, and why there's the hesitation to seek medical care. And many communities are without adequate medical care and hospitals. That brings us into where we are present day. And a little bit of history with our current circumstances of the COVID pandemic and vaccines. But there's also mental health for the Black community and history of not seeking care and treatment. Today, we're just taking a little snapshot for Black History Month, but I plan to talk a lot more in depth about the mental health aspect, housing, and future Talk Time with Tracy's. Be sensitive if you can. Sometimes you can't be sensitive, but be sensitive if you can to individuals who have different opinions than you do. We don't know everyone's story. Some of the stories that in the little snippets that I gave you today, some people may know, some others may not. I hope you found this informative and helpful and useful. But know that the NAACP is working on housing, education, criminal justice, all of those issues, and especially health issues. All of these are a part of our platform, and our youth programs includes AXO. And if you want to know more about that, please reach out to us to get involved. There are many opportunities. Thank you for tuning in to Talk Time with Tracy.